what are the most common Agile adoption problems? So I think we've covered a couple off already around just implementing some practices and paying lip service to the ceremonies and so on. So I guess in my view, one of the things we've discussed around half-hearted adoption, the most common thing is for me the lack of attention to those values and the principles actually, and the approach of just taking the Scrum guide, for example, and implementing as writ, and then as much as possible within their organizational context, which often means that therein lies some of the first problems. But it doesn't particularly talk to the values and the reasons and the why you're going about doing this in the first place. So then the kind of missing the big problems there are missing all of those key reasons.
Yeah, and some of those values and principles, I mean, the implications of them, actually take quite a bit of insight and quite a bit of even time for a lot of people to really grasp.
Yeah.
So one thing I say in Scrum training is, when you start out with an Agile adoption, how many people involved, unless you're very lucky to have some very experienced coaches or the people from perhaps a previous adoption, are, deep experts in, lean product development or empirical process control, or the dynamics of really good self-organizing teams and things like this. That stuff is often a very different ballgame for the people involved. And the part of, I guess, the fantastic thing about Scrum at one level is that it's this simple framework that if you actually take that leap of believing that these rules are there for a reason and believing that actually it does work and it has worked for thousands of other organizations, if you actually implement it properly as a system where you have all those components that actually interrelate and help each other to be effective, then actually it does work. However,
I like the words you use there. You said the word leap. You are almost talking about a leap of faith, aren't you? To trust in that framework, that Scrum framework, to actually do. There's a reason for it being there.
There's an awful lot of evidence to back it up, though. To be fair, it's a leap with an awful lot of theory, evidence, and support.
Yeah, but what I see going around in quite a lot of organisations who perhaps don't embrace a particular existing framework so seriously and sort of say, we're not really a Scrum place or a Kanban place. We're more just wanting to be agile or do agile, especially when they phrase it that way. It's kind of like often the attitude that we can cherry pick the bits and pieces that we feel, I guess, not ever trying it, haven't tried it before, that we think are the right ones for us to adopt.
That's a good point, Rowan. The point,
a lot of the key things.
The point you're making there about the fact that, and while we're talking about what are some of these bad adoption practices, is trying to customize Scrum from day one. Saying you're going to adopt it, not getting good at the basics before you actually start making a hybrid out of it, and not really understanding the as is before you change it.
Yeah, and how will you ever know whether what you've custom invented is if it's as good as what basic Scrum would have been if you'd actually adopted it properly? It might actually be a whole lot worse, and you never realized that you could have done better if you'd actually just taken the basics and started with that.
So
going
back to your point, Ray, yes, Scrum has lots of proof that is behind it. Is that one of the failings of when organizations or companies are trying to adopt Scrum and they're finding it difficult to take that leap of faith? They're not going and doing the research to make sure that there's good reasons for doing it out of the box. There's good reasons for going this way. They're not going and looking at that backup research to say this is a good thing to do.
I think there's certainly an element of that. I think, but also this is not a logical change. It requires an emotional buy-in to make those cultural changes and those changes in beliefs. And you can present as much logic as you like and as much proof as you like, but there comes a point where actually, as we've been talking about earlier, it's a bit of a leap of faith, and you just have to trust, and that requires an emotional component to that buy-in that you're not going to get by by reading, what are the various supporting articles of the company next door that happen to be exactly identical to yours, being successful at it. So yeah, it's, I think you're right. There are a lot of people that don't particularly look at the evidence. They just hear, oh, this Agile thing, it's working for loads of other people, I've heard. So yeah, just give it a go without necessarily digging into it. And talking to your point, Rowan, earlier about the fact that there's plenty of companies that, the lead developer has read about this Agile thing and he's now pioneering the change within the organization, and there's no coaching capacity or capability or understanding to be able to lead that. So,
I once worked with an organization that exactly that scenario, and he told me that there's absolutely no possible way we're having business analysts or people with business analysis skills in the Agile team.
Absolutely not.
Having a BA,
it doesn't say BAs.
No, he actually told me that having a BA in the Agile team was an Agile anti-pattern. I said, really? Okay, where have you read that?
Well, it's developer, right? So
yeah, a lot of people misunderstand that too, isn't it? It's, the developer word really means product developer. Anyone that contributes to the development of the product and any skill.
We've gone around circle back to people have misunderstood the values.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what I've seen maybe to talk about the successful adoptions and then compare. Really,
gloom.
A characteristic of the ones that I've seen succeed is really a person in a position of significant authority, I guess, over the group who are doing the adoption in the existing perhaps hierarchy or the existing org structure, who's perhaps not just heard it's a buzzword or heard about these things or read about it and intellectually perhaps has got it at that level, but actually experienced a bit of it. Has actually had an experience that has actually changed their beliefs to the extent that they actually believe in it, and that they've bought into it to the level that they're not just saying, I support it, but they're actually rolling up their sleeves and actually putting work in to enable that change and to lead that change and to bring other people into it and to help them through their difficulties with it and all this sort of thing. And, those sort of people are sometimes at, a senior program management level or software development manager or a CTO or CIO. Even better if it's initially coming from the business, really, and someone in the business is actually clued into, hey, this is a great proposition for the business. How about we really, work with the IT guys to really make this a partnership? And
it does ironically, we Agile and the Scrum Guide and all sorts of other things talk about business value quite a lot, and how obviously we're supposed to be prioritizing everything around business value. And ironically, so many times these Agile adoptions are not driven from a business standpoint at all. It is a lead developer or a technical person or a development manager or even a CIO. But fundamentally, if it's not, if there's no business driver, one might question what the end result's going to be.
Yeah, so you do have to have that as well. I probably you should say that the ones that I've seen being most successful have had that belief from the business that there's a better way and that there's this kind of engagement in by the business, ongoing, not just at the start and creating an internal contract with IT and walking away and saying now it's IT's responsibility, but actually, taking on that responsibility to steer it interactively and really provide feedback and.
That's definitely one of the the question being the most common adoption problems. Certainly backing you up there, Rowan, is let's say the business were involved early on and they assigned a product owner to the project, but that product owner was not highly available during the week. Maybe they were only available once a week for 2-hour period. I've seen that in organizations where that is something that is going to be a bit of a barrier to an Agile adoption. Same as things like, yes, we all work for the same company and we're in the same building, but we're all on different floors. We haven't bothered to actually take co-location to heart because we haven't really understood how valuable high bandwidth communication with our teammates is. Those are just two I can think of off the top of my head that would be real big barriers to adopting Agile.